Over. And straight. Come on. Okay. Yeah, speed. Go ahead.
Good speed,
Yeah.
Pet Shop Boys traditional welcome on here.
Hello.
Good to have you. So this time you're getting busy again, yeah? Looks like you're going to be very busy.
Yeah, we've got a new LP out, which means keeps us busy for a while, and then we're going to be doing a tour next year, which is going to take us through till about June. So we've got a busy kind of 9 months ahead of us.
Is that exciting time for you, like, once the recording is done, to come out and explain it and talk about it and then perform it because you're going to perform?
Really the most exciting thing is making it and writing it. And then I suppose seeing what the reaction to it is, whether people like it. Promoting it isn't, if one was being honest, isn't really exciting. But I think we're excited about doing this tour, about the ideas and stuff we've got for it. And of course we've never done a big tour before, so it's going to be a kind of world tour by the looks of it. And so that's quite exciting, putting all that together.
Let's start with the beginning, with behaviour. Is that something you're interested in people's behaviour?
Am I?
You like the title.
I got the title actually. I just like the sound of the word more than anything else. Not something I've kind of studied or been particularly interested in. Some people's behaviour gets on your nerves a bit, can't deny that, but other than that, I'm not a behaviourist.
That's funny, I think, and that does happen quite a lot with Pet Shop Boys. Every time you come out with a title, you'll think, that sums up the Pet Shop Boys. You've done it again.
Yeah, I think one can normally post-rationalise the title to mean something. We didn't want to have a funny title, like we thought Pet Shop Boys Actually, or Please, was quite kind of funny. We didn't want one in that style anyway. And Chris suggested behaviour, we had millions of suggestions. And it looked good with the artwork, and also it did seem to kind of sum up the songs on the album, if one wants to think of it like that. It's a very broad kind of term. And also on the cover it looks kind of slightly medical or modern, and there's something about it just seemed to sum it all up quite well.
Well, now let's start with the video for So Hard. The opening shot, the West End shots, and the crowd in the street on Friday night or whatever it is. And that's behaviour. Really.
It's just drunken behaviour in the video. Because the song was called So Hard, we decided to shoot the video somewhere that one might think of as being hard. And I come from Newcastle, and Newcastle's kind of a hard place. It has its soft sides as well, but and they have this area around the big market in Newcastle where people go out at the weekend and they get really, really drunk. And even when it's really cold, you see girls wearing like mini skirts and boys in t-shirts, and they all queue to get into these pubs. It's always rather fascinated us, this when we've visited Newcastle. Chris has been there as well before, and so we thought it would be quite an interesting place to do it. It seemed to fit the song somehow, because the chorus of the song has got that rather drunken kind of dum dum da da hook to it. It seemed to kind of sum up those. It seemed to kind of conjure up those images.
So that's all shot in Newcastle.
The whole video was shot in Newcastle.
Don't be wrong, because I thought it was a composite of like the shot. I thought it was the West End. I thought it was Charing Cross Road.
No, it's all new.
It's exactly like Friday Night and Charing Cross Road.
It's all Newcastle. Someone else thought it was partly shot in New York, but actually it's the Tyne Bridge. I think someone thought it was the Brooklyn Bridge, but actually it's the Tyne Bridge. It was quite nice for me, yes, because to do it in my hometown.
Right, and then you opened the album with Being Boring, which is something that is again said about the Pet Shop Boys.
I think that's where we got the idea for the title of the song from. Someone had said something about us, the Pet Shop Boys, being boring. Now, it seemed like a rather nice phrase, being boring. And then it made me think of, there's a quote by Zelda Fitzgerald, the wife of Scott Fitzgerald, the writer, something about what she was writing about the 1920s, about we were never bored, because we were never boring. And this quote was on a party invitation when I was growing up in Newcastle in the 70s. And so it's a kind of, from my point of view of the words, it's a kind of look back at all the friends I had and what we ended up doing, with this aim of not having to do something boring. And looking back from my vantage point now.
There's something you make sure that you never do whatever you do. First get bored and then don't be bored.
I always wanted to make sure that I didn't have to end up doing a routine job, because it was something I didn't think I'd ever be happy doing. Even when I was a student, I did student jobs. A lot of people worked in factories and stuff like that. I got a job I used to work in a bookies, and which I used to enjoy. And then I got a job in the British Museum, which I also enjoyed quite a lot. And then I worked at Marvel Comics, and I worked in book publishing. I worked for Smash Hits, as you probably know. And none of these but all of these jobs I enjoyed, really. And then I ended up with in the Pet Shop Boys, which is the best of the lot, you know.
Well, when do you think a band becomes boring for other people?
Well, I mean, I think people might have thought that we were boring because we're quite static performers, and I don't really think that is boring at all. I mean, for me, something boring is to see loads of heavy metal groups doing exactly the same thing that they've been doing for the past few decades now, and which doesn't present anything different, new or challenging, and so it all depends what you think of as being boring.
I was watching something that American TV did about Brian Eno. They did a profile of Brian Eno. And there's a conference they did, and there's a question about Roxy Music, and he said why he left Roxy Music and how, and he said, I remember very precisely, I was playing and singing one day, I said Roxy Music, I was probably like that, I was singing away. And then I realised that I was thinking about my laundry. And I thought, this is it. Yeah, this is the time to just go somewhere else. And I thought it was quite a good definition of being bored. Doing something that's supposedly exciting.
Yeah, there are aspects of what we do that you find boring, like, I don't know, flying, for instance, is boring. And sometimes being nice to people all day long can be kind of boring. And but they're just small parts of what we do anyway. I mean, I think you can't possibly escape totally not having to do anything routine. Actually, sometimes routines are quite comforting anyway. But anyway, that was the inspiration of the song, I think. And also, I think we like to confront the fact that people have said that the Pet Shop Boys are boring in their videos or on television. And it was kind of confronting that in the title as much as anything else.
Thinking about it, there's quite a lot of guitars on the album. Probably more than before. And there's even guitar solo.
Well, there's a kind of guitar solo played by me. It's actually only 3 notes. Well, I think it sounds quite nice. We've always actually had guitar samples on our records. In fact, we've normally, on every LP we've done, we've actually had guitars. But of course, we're not really. We always tend to use guitars in a disco kind of sense. Like on the single Heart, it's got a wah-wah guitar all the way through it. And our first LP, a couple of the tracks had that kind of guitar in it. On the worst stuff we do with Liza Minnelli as well. And so on this one, on the song Being Boring, we've got a kind of what I would call a disco guitar. On October Symphony, another song, Johnny Marr plays wah-wah guitar on it. And when we were writing some songs in Glasgow, Chris was programming, and there was a guitar shop next door, and I went next door because I can't play the guitar, and I've never had an electric guitar. And I bought an electric guitar, and I was kind of messing around with that. And so again, on a couple of the songs, there's one called The End of the World, there's a little kind of guitar figure, 3-note guitar figure on that. And then there's a song called How Can You Expect to Be Taken Seriously, which is about rock stars. And we put guitar on that to give it a kind of rock reference. But in fact, all the guitar I played was sampled into a synclavier and kind of tightened up a bit because I'm not the world's greatest guitarist.
And again, that's again a strange combination. This album of very simple things. You know, like sometimes the drum programming and all that is really as simple as you can go, probably. And then like really lush. I mean, like the last track on the album with the
Jealousy.
Whoever, how many people are singing, playing that full orchestra. It seems to work on that balance of very as low tech as you can get.
Well, a lot of complicated drum programming kind of gets in the way of a song. You know, you can set up really good grooves and that, but then when you apply a song to a traditional pop song, you can kind of fight against it, and so you have to have quite a simple rhythm track quite often to make a song work. Actually, some of the rhythms are more complicated than we've done before. We've done quite a lot of shuffle stuff, which we'd never tried before, and different feels, like on How Can You Expect to Be Taken Seriously. We've never done any of that sort of drum programming before, so don't know really.
Jealousy, did you who's performing that big orchestral piece at the end?
The synclavier.
Harold Faltermeyer. Actually, it took about 2 hours to do. We wanted Jealousies like a big ballad. It kind of sounds rather European to me. Kind of like Edith Piaf should sing it. And it's got a rather taut, kind of spare arrangement throughout the song. And at the end, we just wanted to have a kind of show business finale to it, because that's kind of the song could have been done like that, really. And although people have said to us that this album sounds very serious, I mean there are moments of kind of humour. That actually is kind of a moment. It's kind of meant to be rather humorous as well. It's rather, someone described it as very, oh, the Pet Shop Boys have now left the building, or you have been listening to the Pet Shop Boys, and has got that kind of finale end to it. Also, it's kind of, at the same time, it's genuinely stirring as well, I think. But we didn't do that with an orchestra. We did it with a synclavier. In fact, on several of the tracks, 2 or 3 of the tracks, there is an orchestra. But on that one, it was easier to do it just using samples.
And there is a lot of drama still involved in the composition.
A lot of drama.
Drama.
Yeah, I think drama seems to be an inherent quality. A kind of film soundtracky kind of drama it seems to be normally inherent in our music. And on this album, there's quite a few tracks like that. There's a track called "This Must Be the Place I Waited Years to Leave." And actually, in fact, we started writing that a few years ago when we thought we were going to be asked to write a James Bond theme. And it has a little kind, it has a sort of a John Barry-esque guitar melody on it, because we thought it sounded a bit like a James Bond sort of thing. And at the end, they asked a-ha to do the theme, which is The Living Daylights. And so we had this piece of music which we adapted for this song. But there's quite a lot of there's a song called "Only the Wind" we were writing when Chris was writing this melody, and it was in the middle of the terrible gales in London last year, and or all over Britain last year. And as we were writing this song, there was literally dustbins flying down the street and sheets of corrugated iron, and you were warned not to go outside unless you absolutely had to. And the wind was making a terrific noise, and this, quite unusually really, but this directly inspired the song, so it's called "Only the Wind," and it kind of uses the wind. The man in the song is blaming the wind for all of his problems.
Did you watch yesterday and today that German reunification?
I saw a little bit yesterday.
How did that feel?
What, German reunification?
Well, just watch it, not just witnessing and looking at it happening.
Oh, I think it's incredible, really. When you think that only a year ago there was only the tentative. I mean, 18 months ago, the regime seemed so secure. It seems remarkable that in such a short space of time it should have it should have, unification should have come about, and the Eastern German regime should have collapsed like that. It seems astonishing.
I just talk about it because of that. I was listening at the same time I was watching this morning news. I was listening to October Symphony.
Well, there's a couple of songs. The song we talked about before, the James Bond one, This Must Be the Place I Waited Years to Leave, which is actually about having a dream that I'm back at school, which is a dream that I quite often have. We also thought it was a bit like how you would look back at these regimes in Eastern Europe. You would suddenly, once a level of normality has been achieved, when you look back at the communist regimes of Eastern Europe, they will appear cruel and bizarre to people, the things that you have to do. It's just kind of the way I felt about it. The only parallel I have in my life for that, to an extent, is having been to a kind of authoritarian school, and so there are references out in the song. There's some bits of Russian in it. There's a choir shout Lenin at one point. And October Symphony was inspired by having read and listened to, having read the biography of and listened to music of Shostakovich, Russian composer, who had to write a lot of music simply to survive the Stalinist era and the communist era in Russia. Like all composers or artists, you had to accept official commissions glorifying the October Revolution. And in the song, the composer or the writer is saying, he's wondering what he's going to do with this monumental October Symphony he's written, now that no one believes in Marxism anymore, or the achievements of Lenin. What's he going to do with this October Symphony? Shall he just change the title, or shall he revise the whole symphony? It sounds rather pretentious when you talk about it, but I don't think it really sounds pretentious.
When you've got a bit on Russian, being literature, being art, being that's something that interests you or fascinates you. I don't know exactly what the word is, but...
What, Russia?
Yeah.
I've always been interested by Russia since I was a little boy. I think it's... I've always thought it's fascinating, the idea of the revolution in the first place. I was always fascinated by Lenin and Stalin. And recently I was reading quite a lot about Shostakovich and about poets, Anna Akhmatova, and the unbelievable sufferings people have gone through there. It also interests me, the West's attitudes to Russia interests me a lot. The sympathy and the way people have been taken in by, I don't know, for instance, by Stalin, or indeed by Ceausescu, something in Romania, being entertained at Buckingham Palace. The kind of the way politics makes people have to deal with these kind of monsters, regardless of the sufferings being caused.
And that German thing, I was thinking about it. How does that make you? Does it make you feel more European watching something like that, or what does it make exactly you feel like?
Did you say anything?
I just saw a little bit of it. Well, I'm not very happy about the wall coming down, because I like the wall. I think it's a good graphic, really. I like it, and but I don't know what I think about it really. It doesn't really bother me that much. I don't get that affected by it.
You just seem to be quite when the way like to pick up into
Actually, I liked East Germany as well. I'm sorry, I like the whole thing. I liked going across Checkpoint Charlie and everything. I like the fact that there's a place you can go that's completely different. I mean, obviously it's not very good for the people that are stuck there, but that were stuck there. But it's quite good. I always like it when you go to somewhere that's completely different from where you are now, like going to a different lifestyle and that. When you go to, went to Egypt once, well, actually it was only a 2-day trip, but went there, and you were aware that you were somewhere that wasn't totally westernised, and a different way of life and everything, and I think that's quite good. I think, the whole world's becoming like one place, and it's really boring. You go there and you've got the same shops, the same beliefs, the same attitudes, the same politics. It's like really boring.
Sorry?
Oh yeah, it is. It's the same music and everything. It all gets a bit boring, it's a bit much of a muchness.
Why you decided to take the first tour you did, the first live performances you did, was to take it to different places. Where did you play?
Hong Kong, Japan.
Yeah.
Just Hong Kong, Japan and Britain. No, actually we just did that because they asked us to do it, and we'd never toured before because we always thought that we always had an idea of a kind of show we wanted to do, and it was a rather expensive idea. And we hadn't really wanted to play in big places before, and I suppose before we weren't popular enough to do playing them either. And we got an offer from Japan to play the Budokan in Tokyo, quite a big place. And we realised we could afford to do this show, and so we put together a show with Derek John with lots of costumes, and he made films. And we had dancers and choreography, and the kind of costumes and the films were sort of linked. And it was a really good experience. But the reason we did it there was simply because they asked us, they made the offer, and we are quite popular there. And it was good. It was a very enjoyable experience. We liked the show, and it's quite interesting for us seeing our audience, seeing the people who will pay and come and see the Pet Shop Boys, and how the audience differs in places between Hong Kong, Japan, between Japan and Britain, between Birmingham and London, kind of thing. There's all these differences in the audience, and that was, I don't know, it was a very enjoyable experience, and it's kind of moving in a way, you know. Yes, I mean, just the reaction you get from people is, I mean, it's kind of quite moving, really, in a way, that all those people kind of like you to some extent.
Well, not being previously anywhere live performers and not really working for it, and it's discipline, it's work. How did that feel like stepping up on stage?
It feels it's exciting. It's really good, actually. It's quite strange to feel like you're liked or loved by so many people. It's quite a strange feeling, and I can understand why people do it, actually. Kind of despise them for liking it, but you do come off stage with a certain high, and it is good.
What's the question, sorry?
Do pay attention.
What's it like stepping on stage the first time? Well, I'd always wondered what it was like. I always used to imagine what it would be like. I mean, obviously we've been on TV shows where they kind of announce you and everything, but it was, well, no, I felt the same thing. All these people have paid to come and see us. And also, in the show, I was always rather thinking about what I had to do next. I had all these costume changes, and there's quite a lot to concentrate on in the show when you're singing, all the rest of it. But I mean, to get the sort of huge reaction is very exciting. I think maybe it's dangerous. You have to make sure it doesn't change your music too much. You don't start writing things to play in a large arena, which can happen to people, I think, when they get addicted to playing live. But we certainly. I certainly found it quite an emotional experience, and also we're going to be doing another tour next year anyway. We decided, as it worked on a small level, we just did 14 dates, we're going to do a big tour next year. But that'll probably be our one and only tour.